had a family gathering over the weekend, a holiday. My cousin was out, and he's a sophomore. He's doing a great job off at college. And he's going to major in history. He just declared. He's excited, and he loves it. He wants to be a teacher, but more on the level of professor. He wants to stay in. He wants to stay in history, maybe even get like a doctorate, go on and college professor, right? Everybody's got a dream, but this is his idea right now. I was just trying to participate. So I'm saying, well, cousin, you must love storytelling then, right? I mean, that's what history is. I thought he knew that. And somewhere, like, I opened his eyes, but that wasn't my intent. I was just trying to make conversation. Like, history is just storytelling. There's no way to know what the Romans were doing in the year 1500. Not zero. Zero way. There was no film. There was no picture. There was no paint. There was no witnesses. There was no scribes of it. I mean, it would be impossible. We don't know who shot JFK, and that's on videotape from a few decades back, right? I mean, like, the story of history is just a story that people have agreed to say that happened throughout history. So it's storytelling. You want to be a storyteller. You like a good story, like an interesting story. Not to mention, people know, even of today, history is written by the winners, not by the losers. So when you got the good guys, the bad guys, what happened, how we got there, right? It's just one of these things. If you ever read a business book, guys, they're all the same in that the person that succeeded and is now writing your book was told by everybody it couldn't be done. Nobody believed in him, but he knew. They'll never tell the truth, which is I suspected. I went into an environment. I'm a gambler, and I went with. I'm a fool. I didn't think this would work, and it turned out it did. All of those are true. The one part that's not true is I knew what everybody didn't. And if I could just, then I would. Every business book written will come from that tone. They will rewrite it. They will remanufacture the past. Okay. So, Ronda's come out with a book. And in the book, she makes a statement that she had been dealing with concussions. And when I hear that, the very first thing I think is, whoa, what was the first big shot I saw Ronda take? You know, concussion could come at anywhere, didn't have to. But my thought was, what's the first big shot I saw her take? Must have been that head kick in Australia from Holly Holm. But if you read a little further on, Ronda talked about, no, I came into the sport with this. I was getting concussed in judo more times than not. So I share that with you because you're trying to figure out what part can I take literal here. And this is scary stuff. Like concussion and concussion protocol. Will Smith, through a movie called Concussion, really helped the world in many ways. I mean, not only was it a great portrayal by Will Smith, not only was that a award-winning movie, but there was a message in there, and it taught a lot of people. And it had to do with a doctor who was learning about concussions and his specific experiment or experience of bringing this information to Roger Goodell and the NFL just prior to Roger Goodell and the NFL blackballing the doctor so that he would not release the information. And I will just tell you, like, that wasn't all that long ago off the top of my head. We're looking around 2006. 2008 is the time in the release of this movie. I'm close, but my point in telling you that is that's not that long ago. I was out of college. I had a teammate, Eric Webb, who was dealing with concussion, but we didn't really know what that meant. I mean, the way of dealing with that is just to have him not practice, so there's no live goes, like your heads won't butt into each other and just come out for competition. That made perfect sense to everybody. And I finished college only 5 or 6 years before this movie. After this movie, I have a wrestler. I'm now his coach, but I have a wrestler on scholarship at Oregon State. And because diagnosing is so difficult to do with concussion, it is incumbent on the athlete. Do you have a concussion? No. Okay, guess what? Guess what the official answer is? He's not concussed. Do you have a concussion? Yes. Boom, you're concussed. Now, what my athlete did not know is that if you say those words 3 times per the NCAA, you're out for life. And he was on scholarship. I mean, he didn't have a way to go to school if it wasn't through this process, but he said the words 3 times. And that can be very troubling for kids who oftentimes need a day off of practice. I mean, I'm just sharing for you. Oh, God, my older. Like, there's things that happen when a guy needs a day off. So these were some pretty hard-learned lessons. And I didn't know how literal to take this with Ronda because, I mean, there's a couple of interpretations. Is she just telling a story that we found interesting? Maybe. I thought it was bigger, though. I thought there could be a message, and she was, much like the movie Concussion and the portrayal that Will Smith did, she was trying to help and extend information to others. That is definitely a possibility. It was the possibility that I believed to be accurate. I'll get to why I believed it to be so sincere in a moment, but I am forced to understand that every book written, much like my cousin who's excited about going into history, and thinks that he can tell you what the Spaniards were doing on the ship in 1600 when they touched the port. Knock it off. You only know what somebody else told you, right? It's just one of these things. Knowing that every business book written is reworking and manufacturing, no matter the level of integrity that you believe that author has. It's just human nature. And when the specific words more times than not were used, I knew, okay, this isn't literal. Is it meant to be, though? Is it just a broad stroke to a discussion? Right? I'm just trying to figure those things out. Like, Ronda did a great job either way. It's a really good book. It drops tomorrow. I plugged the book for you guys. I'm just sharing for you, when we're breaking down this part, how literal do we want to take it? I know it's not when the words say more times than not. That would mean if you went to practice 4 times in a week, over 2 times you were concussed. I mean, that's what more times, right? More than not. So now that I know that that isn't literal, how much of the rest of it is? And it's just an interesting spot. The reason that I personally thought that it was sincere, I read a number of things. People giving Ronda a hard time. A number of things that this was not sincere or that was a covering for losses and things like this. I didn't believe. And I didn't believe that. And where she does have sincerity with me is, I don't know that she's done. There was just talks and rumors of her fighting at 300, and I think that she was interested, at least in the attention of that. She didn't shoot those down. I think there's a little part of her that has a little glimmer. That's not going to return to the Ultimate Fighting Championship, but I'm sharing with you that that dream might still exist within her, whether it's a reality or not. I don't think that she's done wrestling. I thought she said as much. She's going to step away from wrestling for now, and then we'll return. I thought, but the reason that it's taken with such sincerity for me is that is now not an option. If you are having those kinds of concussions and you have now brought that to the attention, much like my athlete in the Division I program who said 3 times, I'm concussed, done for life. If you come out and you make that statement, you are done. You are now unlicensable. And if you're having them from judo, which is a lot of times a fall on the mat, in the wrestling world where you're taking bumps, there's not an opportunity to say, well, there's no striking and there's no blows. There's no striking, there's no blows in judo as well. There's no striking, there's no blows in wrestling that my athlete got cut. I'm saying that because I do think that she's sincere. I don't think it's literal. I can assure you it's not literal. There's not more days than not that she was concussed, but I'm telling you, I think that it's sincere. And that is very scary stuff. And there's also a side of, oh, wow. Yeah, oh, wow. Who wasn't seeing this? I mean, in the sport of MMA, we are the only sport in the civilized world that government oversees. Are you guys aware of that? Nowhere in the world, aside communist regimes. I mean, when we went in and stopped Saddam under the lie that he had WMDs, but when we went in and stopped Saddam, one of the first things we did is free the Iraqi soccer team. Literally, only communist regimes oversee sport. Well, and combat. That's overseen here. So when they hang their hat on fighter safety, when they're taking your 6% and they're doing this whole thing, it's all this big show. But when they justify that to take the tax dollars, which is always fighter safety, how was a fighter so incredibly looked at, so incredibly watched, so incredibly known, passed through? Why would she know that she was concussed, but they didn't? Those are public. This is public agencies, here and abroad, funded by tax dollars. I mean, I'm sharing that with you because before you go, well, Chael, they might have marked that down and HIPAA laws protect it. No, they don't. Not on the in sheet and not on the out sheet. So if coming in to get in the ring to compete, then there was no concussion, or at least none observed. Well, what about on the way out? How would you hide one of those? And I'm not pointing the finger here, but I am a little bit. Maybe I'm just trying to piece in a little bit of controversy, but there is a question there. How weren't those noticed? How do you not see that? They can't both be true. Can't be having concussions that are so simple that I didn't even have to be hit. It could be in judo where I got this jacket. He's pulling my pants, and right? It's a pretty soft sport done on a mat. How are you getting past those checks? Day before the fight, night of the fight, after the contest. I'm just asking the question. But she's not the first to say this. We've heard this from many fighters. But I'll be the first to ask. Why is the government, who is taking the 6% and hanging their hat in all 50 states on fighter safety, not the ones that are catching this?